Okay, good day, class. So this would be your lesson 3, which would tackle about dehydration. Now, dehydration, class, in histopathology is the removing of intercellular and extracellular water from the tissue. So you need to make sure, class, that your water is removed from the tissues that you're going to fix or you're going to process. Now, this is done following fixation and prior to wax impregnation. So, ginagawa siya after fixation and before you impregnate it with your paraffin wax. If wax cannot penetrate the tissue will crumble when cut. So, it's very important that you remove water glass because water prevents the penetration of the tissue of the wax into the tissue. Now, for routine tissues and if infiltration is with non-water miscible medium. Now, I want you to take note of the characteristics of an ideal dehydrating agent. The first one is that it should dehydrate rapidly. It should not evaporate very fast. Should be able to dehydrate even fatty tissue. It should not harden tissues excessively, not remove stain, toxic to the body of the medical technologies, and should not be a fire hazard. Now let's tackle the dehydrating agent. Let's tackle first the most common one, the alcohols. Now alcohols in general class are used in increasing strength to remove aqueous tissues with little disruption to the tissue caused by diffusion current, meaning increasing strength class. Let's say you would start with 60%. So ilagay mo siya dyan for 1 hour. Then after another hour, you would put it in 70%, then 80%, and so on. Now, a very concentrated solution above 80% makes tissues hard, brittle, and difficult to cut. So most of the time, class, na usually nasa 40 to 60% lang yung dehydrating agent na ginagamit. Now, prolonged storage in lower concentrations of alcohol tend to macerate naman the tissue. Now, at 37 degrees centigrade, temperature will hasten dehydration time and is especially used for tissue sections that require urgent examination, such as your fragmentary biopsy. Now, to ensure complete dehydration, add anhydrous copper sulfate to the bottom of the container to take up water from the dehydrating agent. Now, itong anhydrous copper sulfate nyo, class, tinatanggal niya yung water dun sa dehydrating agent mo. And a blue discoloration indicates full saturation with water. So, kapag yung dehydrating agent nyo is color blue na, di ba may yung, if your dehydrating agent has anhydrous copper sulfate, once it turns blue, it indicates that it is fully saturated with water and need mo na siyang palitan. You need to replace the dehydrating agent. Now let's tackle the first one under alcohol, your ethanol, also known as your ethyl alcohol. Now this is routinely used. It's fast and very cheap, clear, colorless, and a flammable fluid. This is considered the best dehydrating agent because it is fast acting, mixes with water and many organic solvents, penetrates the tissue easily, and it is not poisonous. Produces over hardening and shrinkage of tissue at 100% concentration, ascending concentration from 70 to 100%. Gradual and complete removal of water. May start with 30% for very delicate specimen. Limited time is used to avoid maceration of tissue. So, ang ethanol nyo class is the number one commonly used dehydrating agent in histopathology laboratory. Then we have your methanol, also known as your methyl alcohol. Now, methanol or methyl alcohol class is usually used as a fixative for blood smears. If familiar pa kayo sa paggawa nyo ng right stain, di ba? Now, this is a toxic dehydrating agent. It does not lyse RBC, so that's why it's used for blood films or blood smear. Now we have the third one. You have your butanol, also known as your butyl alcohol. This is a slow dehydrating agent for plant and animal microtechniques, less shrinkage and hardening effect. Recommended for tissues which do not require rapid processing. Then we have the second type, yung acetonio class. So this would last for 1.5 to 2 hours. This is a substitute for alcohol. This is a clear, colorless fluid that mixes with water, ethanol, and most organic solvent. More miscible with epoxy resins than alcohol, but is considered highly flammable. Very rapid glass used for urgent biopsies. Prolonged exposure will produce extensive shrinkage and tissue brittleness. Not for routine work because it produces considerable tissue shrinkage, volatile and flammable. Then the third one is your cellosol, also known as your ethylene glycol monoethyl ether. Dehydrates rapidly. Ethylene glycol ethers are combustible at 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit and are toxic by inhalation, skin contact, and ingestion. That's why the other dehydrating agents class, yung acetone, yung cellulose nyo are rarely used in routine labs. Talaga alcohol talaga ang commonly used, specifically yung ethanol. Then we have your triethyl phosphate. This is fast, does not harden tissue, produces very little distortion, minimal shrinkage, soluble in alcohol, water, ether, benzene, chloroform, acetone, and xylene. Then we have your dioxane. Dioxane is also known as your diethylene dioxide. It acts both as a dehydrant and a clearant. So you will also again encounter this class later sa clearing nyo. Fast produces less shrinkage than alcohol. Prolonged exposure will not affect consistency or staining property. It is very expensive class and at the same time toxic to the liver and has a poor rebounding effect. Readily miscible in water, melted paraffin, alcohol, and xylol. Main disadvantage class is that it is extremely dangerous. Yung B4 niya produces a cumulative and highly toxic action in man, and therefore it should not be recycled as the risk of creating explosive peroxide increases greatly. So there's a possibility class na sasabog yan if you keep reusing it. Then we have your tetrahydrofuran or your THF. Now this is also known as a dehydrant and clearant. Non-toxic but has a very offensive odor. But basically class, it is an eye irritant as well as a skin irritant. Vapor causes nausea, dizziness, anesthesia. It produces skin irritation and conjunctival irritation. Softeners such as 4% phenol, glycerol, alcohol mixture may be added to the dehydrating agent to soften tendon, nail, or dense fibrous tissue. Is miscible in both water and paraffin, lower alcohols, ether, chloroform, acetone, benzene, and xylene. It can dissolve fats. It does not dissolve out aniline dyes. So that ends your dehydration. Thank you. All right. Good day, class. So for today's meeting, we're going to tackle your lesson for clearing. Now, clearing class is also known as your de-alcoholization, wherein you would be removing the alcohol or the dehydrating agent from the tissue. Now, clearing or de-alcoholization class is done twice during processing and prior to permanent mouthing. Now, during processing, the clearing agent serves to mix with alcohol and removes it from the tissue. Now, the clearing should be miscible and with paraffin in order to facilitate the penetration of this embedding medium. Now, take note of the characteristics of a good clearing agent. It should be miscible with alcohol to promote rapid removal of the dehydrating agent from the tissue. It should be miscible with and easily removed by melted paraffin wax or by mounting medium to facilitate impregnation and mounting of section. It should not produce excessive shrinkage, hardening, or damage of tissue. It should not dissolve out aniline dyes, and it should not evaporate quickly in a water bath. It should make your tissues transparent. Now, the clearing agents used in the embedding process class would include xylene, dioxane, chloroform, cedarwood. Now, after the tissue section has been stained, the clearing agent used will make microscopic tissue preparations transparent due to their high index of refraction. Now, clearing agent use class is saline. In frozen section, glycerin and gum syrup are used when the tissue is to be cleared directly from water. So, ang ginagamit talaga na routine natin na clearing agent class is your saline. Now, no clearing is involved in this process, and clearing agents merely improve the refractive index of the tissue. Now, let's talk about the clearing agents. There are two groups. The first one is the organic solvents. Now, organic solvent or organic clearing agents class are rapid, produces hardening, brittleness, and shrinkage of tissue. Now, under organic solvent, the first one is your xylol. Xylol is done, or your xylene. This is done for 30 minutes to 1 hour. This is the most popular. This is a colorless clearing agent, not suitable for nervous tissue and lymph node. It is fast. Best result when preceded by absolute alcohol dehydration, compatible with stains. Hardened tissues on prolonged exposure. Usually, this is limited only class up to 3 hours. Not suitable for CNS tissues and lymph nodes. Becomes milky white when tissue is inadequately dehydrated. Now we also have your toluene class. This is done, clearing is done for 1 to 2 hours for toluene. Somehow similar with xylene, but unlike xylene, it is slower and does not make tissue excessively hard and brittle, even on long exposure of up to 24 hours. It is not carcinogenic. It is, however, expensive. Becomes acidic in a partially filled bottle. May be used as a substitute for xylene or benzene for clearing both during embedding and mounting processes. Now we have the third one, yung benzene yung class. This is a rapid clearing agent, 15 minutes to 1 hour. Hence, is recommended for urgent biopsies and routine processes. Preferred by some in the embedding process of tissue because it penetrates and clears tissue rapidly, produces minimum shrinkage. It is easily removed from the tissues because it volatilizes rapidly in paraffin oven. It is miscible with absolute alcohol, highly flammable, carcinogenic, and damages bone marrow, leading to aplastic anemia. The fourth one is your chloroform. Now, chloroform is lower than xylol. It has no hardening effect, produces minimum shrinkage, best for rough tissues such as the skin, the fibroid, decalcified tissue, CNS tissues, lymph nodes, and embryos. Suitable for large specimens. It is relatively toxic to the liver on prolonged inhalation, miscible with absolute alcohol. Then we also have your amyl acetate. Now, this is a very good clearing agent, not toxic. It allows indefinite stay of tissue. Recommended for large tissue and embryos. Then we have your carbon tetrachloride, similar to chloroform, but it is considered cheaper. Produces considerable hardening. It is toxic on prolonged inhalation. Then we have your carbol This is a combination of phenol and xylene or xylol. Very rapid. Used prior to permanent mouthing. Then we have your metal benzoate and metal salicylate. It is slow. Used in double embedding technique. It's used along with dioxane and tetrahydrofuran. Lead-free aviation. Also found in lead-free aviation gasoline. Now, the second group of clearing agent class are the oils. Now, if you compare this with the organic solvents, oils are slow clearing agent used for large and hard tissues. It allows indefinite stay of tissue, difficult to remove from tissue during infiltration. Now we have your cedarwood oil, usually 2 to 3 days ang clearing niya. Produces no shrinkage, used to clear both paraffin and celluloid sections during the embedding process. Used for CNS tissue, smooth muscle, skin, and eyeballs. It improves cutting. It may become milky on prolonged storage. It produces crystals on storage that may interfere with clearing. Extremely expensive and very slow acting. Requires two changes in clearing solution. Then we have your aniline oil class. Now, aniline oil is recommended for embryos, insects, and very delicate specimen due to its ability to clear 70% alcohol without excessive tissue shrinkage and hardening. Then we have your clove oil. It produces brittleness but with minimum shrinkage of tissue. It has low infiltration with paraffin wax. Removes aniline dyes and dissolves celluloidine. Very expensive and it could easily become adulterated. Now, other oil clearing agents class would include oil of bergamot, oil of oreganum, or the Spanish shop oil or thyme oil, terpineol, which is the artificial oil of lilac, and we also have another terpenoil, which is the artificial oil of hyacinth, which is not a clearant. So between the two class, yung oil of lilac, that is the clearant, but yung oil of hyacinth, it is not a clearing agent. So that ends the clearing topic of your histopath. Thank you.